and he joins us right now on the Harbor One hotline. Hello, Devin.
Good morning. We have our energy high for the short week.
We do. Yes, we do.
Okay.
I think we have full energy over here.
Yep.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We got a lot of energy over here. We're getting ready to go. Short week, tough opponent.
I was there on Sunday. Saw that game.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. Yes, yes, I did.
I am.
Seems kind of awkward
Yeah,
right
I am
now.
like sweating for no reason.
I am, as is well documented, I'm terrified of Devin McCourty. I don't want to say anything to upset him.
Oh.
So I'm treading lightly. You know how that goes.
Do you want me to
yeah.
take it over? Or?
yes, Courtney.
Hey, Greg gets on the radio and he pretends like he's terrified of me. When he sees me out, he sends me different text messages and stuff that shows there's no fear. But he creates this different persona on the radio.
Yep. No. I really am. I'm afraid of you. Yes, I am.
Well, Devin, the question he wants to ask that everybody wants to know is, walk us through the dropped interception. You know.
Well, that was just a drop. I'd rather walk you through because Jason McCourty has decided he would run with it. He sent a text message about it, and then yesterday on Good Morning Football, he also decided to talk about it. So around 10:35 yesterday, I FaceTimed him, and I told him if I hear my name come out of his mouth again, there will be big problems. So, Greg, I guess you do have a reason to fear. I threatened my brother's life yesterday. So
I'm sure. Who, like early on when you guys were young, I'm sure you got into it every once in a while. Who would normally win in a fight between the McCourty brothers?
I would, and we got into it all the time.
Well, just
Once in a while.
just tell Jason to look at the numbers. I mean, Devins will almost double the interceptions. So it's all about the scoreboard, right?
Right.
Sometimes they get away from you.
We've been going back and forth on that game. From your perspective, how big of a factor was the weather?
It was pretty windy, I think. Like we were here all week, and like we had some windy days, and I think people saw Friday we had went in the stadium. But I think it's funny because when the sun's out here, I don't think people realize like sometimes what it is. But like being on the field in pregame, we have one of our equipment guys, Josh, who like has this strong arm, and he's firing the ball at us in pregame, and you could see the ball kind of just moving through the air, coming at you, not just like on a line. So I think I think the wind had a pretty good impact just on how you could throw the ball, especially throwing deep. The wind was going to definitely play a factor.
Do you look at? Sorry, Wiggy.
No, sorry.
Do you look at Sunday as the best performance so far by this defense?
Yeah, I think it was a really good performance. I think for the fact that we just stayed on it. I think sometimes we can get in those games. Like someone asked me after the game. When we get in a game like that, did we start to think that, like, we got to make this play or do this or do that? And I think the defense did a good job of just continuing to do our job, not trying to think, like, all right, man, like, we got to score and we got to do something that's just not a part of the defense, and having guys, run up the field trying to get a sack and, it's a run play, or guys trying to look back at the quarterback when they're in man-to-man coverage. Like, no one did that. We just stuck to what we were doing. And then Marcus and the punt return team makes the play to win the game. And I think that was just great maturity for us as a defense, that we didn't kind of fall out of character worrying about the outcome. We just went one play at a time.
Curtis, what was the number when it came to holding the Jets offensively?
The second half, Devin, you guys held the Jets to 2.77 inches per play.
I don't know who does that kind of research, but that's got to be pretty impressive for the fans to be able to read that kind of stuff.
Devin, we talked to Ty in about 30 minutes, and one thing Ty talked about, obviously back in the early days defensively, is the confidence that they had in the defense because they were able to go out there and do some things. I know you don't want to be too cocky, but you want to be confident. Do you feel like as a defense you guys have that, like walking that thin line between being confident and cocky to the sense, because defensively you guys are in like the top 5 in every major category except for maybe rushing for yards per game. What's that confidence level like?
Yeah, I think so. And I think a part of that confidence level, we've kind of built our preparation standard of what that looks like week after week, and how we need to break teams down on what we need to do. I think that's been the fun part for this defense, as we've put that together, and, obviously including the coaches, but I would say even outside of the coaches, the conversations and the things that we're having leading into the game, of even once we put a call in, of how we can manipulate the call if they give us this or if they give us that. I would say that's grown a lot, especially from secondary to linebackers and then linebackers to the D-line, of the different things we put in, maybe a little new tweak we put in. I would say as a players group, our confidence has really grown with each other as far as the guys out there on the field trusting each other to do more sometimes than even the defense calls for. But we know at this point in the season we can get it done. And that's been cool to see, because our coaches are very open to us being able to talk about adjustments and get different things done whenever we feel like we can get it done on the field.
Devin, a lot of people after the game talking about Zach Wilson and his comments about not letting the defense down. As a defensive player, do players hear that, and does it turn them off? Do you guys expect that whether you're on offense or defense, you take accountability and answer that question differently, I guess? It seems like he might have lost the locker room with that comment.
Yeah, I don't know about them and what's going on with them, but I think most importantly, we all come in this locker room as grown men. I think it's very important for us all to accept responsibility for our individual performances, preparation, all of those things. And then I think it's important for us as a team, when the guys that we vote captains and elect captains, I think it's important for us to always take responsibility and leadership for our groups, and that's offense, defense, special teams. And I think that's important to represent the group. And, a lot of times for our team, it is the captains that are out there talking to the media the most and doing things that represent the team. So I think it's always important for each person on this team to look at the leaders, the older guys, the captains, as spokesmen and people who are going to take responsibility and get it right. Because no one really cares what you say. It's all about getting it right in performance. And, I think that's what I've always tried to focus on in my career. And I was fortunate enough to see guys that were older than me do it and just follow their lead.
From a leader perspective on this team, when it comes to a short week like this, what are the things that you tell the guys that are really important?
I just do a lot of yelling and screaming on a short week. Try to keep the energy high. Try to keep the motivation, the sense of urgency high. Get the guys going. Always tell guys, man, it's more important of what you do, not what you say. And I think we got a group that's hungry, that wants to play good football. We want to. A lot of guys were here last year. We want to play better than we played last year at the end of the year, and we know that takes a lot of focus and urgency, not talk. So, I think guys have been locked in, and I think this is a different type of task, too. You go from a Sunday game to a Thursday game, and then you're playing for us defensively an offense that just has weapons everywhere, So turning on the film last night after the game and then yesterday and watching a few of those games, you're just seeing play after play with Jefferson, and then you're watching Thielen, you're watching Cook go for 80 yards. So it's going to be a tough group to play against, and we got to get a quick turnaround and be ready to go.
Dev, you talk about leadership. It's always interesting for me to kind of see how teams are built, behind the scenes. And I know, being on teams before where you feel like you're not holding up your end of the bargain, maybe an offense, and maybe you feel like the defense could be frustrated in your performance in week in and week out. How do you make sure that doesn't bleed over to a divide of, the offense is not holding up their end of the bargain, or just trying to keep the offense motivated, even though they might be struggling, where you come off the field and say, hey, don't worry about it, we got you, we gonna pick you up on this one. How do you make sure that you're doing that as a leader and your team's buying into that?
Yeah, I think it's important just to stick to our routines and what we've done. I remember in 2011, we ended up being in the Super Bowl that year, and throughout the season, we're winning in shootouts. We're giving up, I think it's the most points so far this season in NFL history, most yards and all of that. but like we would come up with a key interception or a fumble recovery. Like we would do something that could win the game. And I think that's what's important is that it never turned into, one side looking at the other side. Brady and the offense was there. I think they might have been averaging over 35 points a game at one point during that season. But it was all about how can we continue to win games or try to win games. And I think that's been our focus here. It's not about who's more productive, who's done this, who's done that. It's about how can we do a better job of what happened to make sure we win the next game. And I think that's the key. I think leaders always need to keep the main goal the main goal. Our goal coming in the season wasn't to just be high on the list for our defenses or high on the list for offenses. It was to win as many games as possible. And so far, we've slipped up some, and now we have a chance to, focus in on that. And that's what I've been talking about. How do we win games? How do each side complement each other when it's needed? And I think the Jets, Sunday was a prime example of we put a lot of time in all three phases on this team. So for the game to go back and forth like that, and then special teams with 25 seconds left to make the play of the game, I just think it shows that, like, as a team, we have to just keep building and get better and not worry about how we win, but just worry about winning.
Well, the Vikings coming off a tough one, so they'll come into this one angry. You look at this season as a whole, though, and they've been able to put a lot of points on the board. What does Kirk Cousins bring to the table, and what makes him so hard to defend?
Yeah, veteran guy, strong arm, can make really any throw on the field. And I think he's done a really good job of, obviously with O'Connell and, O'Connell's ties back to McVay, and McVay's in the time in Washington probably with Kirk Cousins. And, he just looks like he fully understands what they want to do offensively and getting them in the right plays when they have the check with me at the line of scrimmage stuff. And just being able to find the open receivers. They have a lot of threats, like I said. He's done a good job of that. And then, he's even made plays, I would say from an athletic standpoint, taking off and running and making big plays. So, obviously they have the capabilities to make huge plays. And like you mentioned, especially when you watch a team not perform the way they want the week before, you're going to get their best shot. And they're at home again Thanksgiving. So it's going to be a challenging game. It's going to be 60 minutes. We're going to have to play good football for 60 minutes.
Dev, we were having this conversation, and I think you're in a rare position where you could possibly answer it for us. Patrice Bergeron and the Bruins are playing so well, and there's been a lot of reports that Patrice has said this is his last season, but they've started so fast, and there's a good team built around him. Now, as a player like yourself who's in a position, it seems like you can retire on your own. Does it make a difference when your team starts off so fast and it looks like maybe I can give it one more kick at the can, or when you set your mind on it like this is it, is that really it, or does that play a factor in how you're performing during the season to maybe give you that one more go at it?
Yeah, I think what you're saying, like when you allow it to be a question in your mind during the season, it kind of rides like a roller coaster. Like you get off to a good start, you're like, man, I'm gonna keep doing this. It start going bad, you're like, man, I'm done with this. So I've always tried to tell myself, there'll be a time in the off season where we'll be, far enough removed from the season and still far enough before the off season starts that there'll probably be a sweet spot to, really think and make that decision. So in season, I try not to think about it. I just try to focus on, what's at hand, trying to be the best teammate, try to help, the team grow and win games. So I try not to think about it, because I think when you think about it, you just you're up and down riding that roller coaster, and I'm trying to avoid that.
Should you wish to announce this is your last season, you could do it right here, right this moment.
No, nothing would make you happier, huh?
Well, would make some news. I don't know that Bill would appreciate it, but
or he'll play another year. So either way,
yes.
It should be announced right here.
All right, Curtis, you got a question?
Yeah, Devin, it's right before Thanksgiving, and I figure you're returning to the scene of the crime, Super Bowl 52, Thursday night. I didn't know if there was any, information now that long time has passed and Malcolm returned. What, from your perspective, happened with Malcolm Butler in Super Bowl 52?
Curtis, there's no way you just thought of that question. You had to put a lot of thought to go all the way back there. No, I haven't. I don't know. There's no new news on that one, man. I think that one might have got buried a long time ago.
Yeah.
All right, worth a shot.
I'll put my ear to the streets though when we get out to Minnesota.
Yeah, ask around maybe. Come back next week with a report.
I got you, bro.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad we got to talk about the drop out of the way. That was good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're not going to beat me up. Everything is fantastic. No. It could. By the way, it could be worse. You could be somebody who dropped like 8 passes in a row from a jugs machine publicly. You know what I mean?
It was an off day. That's all it was. Slick balls. The ball machines are way different than when I played, so I think that was part of it.
That makes sense, man.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Devin, it had no speed on it. Like normally when I played the ball machine, it had the miles per hour on it, 30 miles an hour, 40. This one had like 1, 1.5, 2, and then ram speed. I had no idea what I was doing out there.
Yeah, I had that fancy stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, man, go back to the old school one.
What are you what do you end up doing when it comes to Thanksgiving and the kids and stuff? Do you do that tomorrow or do it Friday or do it like how does that work?
We'll celebrate Christmas this year. They'll figure out Thanksgiving. I'll be gone, and we won't be back in time. So I'll be there for Christmas.
Yeah. Well, leftovers. I mean,
that's the best.
Nothing better than the leftover sandwich the next day.
Yep.
Yeah, it is what it is. I would rather win. I don't care about the food this year.
I'm sure they give you a good Thanksgiving meal on the road, though.
We'll see. We're in a hotel, so
yeah, it's not the same.
I don't know. They're not trying to make us super happy. Yeah, and then, like what you're used to and, how your parents or your family cooks, you can't get that, everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that mac and cheese, it hits different.
Yeah. You should send Devin some of Mrs. Wiggins' mac and cheese.
Huh? It is great. It's the black mac and cheese, but the only problem is I recommend you eat it when it's hot because she puts a little cinnamon sugar in there, takes it to a whole nother level. So
yeah, I don't think Greg understands that.
No, I mean it was delicious, but I'm not. It was. We tried it several years ago, and it's mac and cheese, but with it's sweet mac and cheese.
Yeah, sweet mac and cheese.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you should get them to bring it in for the crew.
Yeah, I think we should.
My wife, she don't like doing all that cooking for everybody, though. You're gonna have to come to the house.
I'm afraid.
Wiggy, that's how you do it. You make sure you don't put anything extra on your wife. That is how you do it.
That's it.
I'm afraid he might get the dish in here and then drop it, though.
That is true.
All right, Dev. Thanks for taking the time and enjoy playing on Thanksgiving, and we will talk to you again next week, all right?
All right, you guys have a good one.
All right, there he is, the great Devin McCourty. He's the best.
Yeah, he's so good.
He's so good.